agency is planning to unveil limits on power plants' greenhouse gases emissions, which could require facilities to capture the pollution from their smokestacks. This, according to several people briefed on the proposed plan, which is still under final review by the White House Office of Management and Budget. President Biden has pledged to decarbonize the power business by 2035, pushing for a transition to electric vehicles and to curb methane leaks from oil and gas wells. According to the EPA, power plants are responsible for nearly a quarter of U.S. gas emissions.
Fox's Kristen Goodwin. America is listening to Fox News.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusitani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
There's a court challenge to Missouri's new law that bans gender-affirming care for minors.
The American Civil Liberties Union claims the state attorney general, Andrew Bailey, a Republican, is using a consumer protection statute to limit access to gender-affirming care. The new rule would require doctors to make patients aware of a long list of side effects, as well as information that could lead people to change their mind about the treatment. The ACLU likened the tactic to highlighting the flaws of a new car or some other product. A spokeswoman for the state attorney general said there are legal concerns on whether this care can be considered evidence-based medicine. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Most abortions are now illegal in North Dakota under a bill signed into law Monday by Governor Doug Burgum. There are exceptions for victims of rape or incest and certain medical emergencies, but those are only good for the first 6 weeks gestation. In many cases, a woman doesn't detect her pregnancy until later than that. 2 million DeWalt fiberglass sledgehammers are being recalled. Stanley Black & Decker says the head can fly off in certain cases and cause injury. A popular spice is being recalled.
Generic tubs of ground cumin sold in most of the eastern half of the U.S. are getting recalled because they may be contaminated with salmonella. Those 6-ounce plastic tubs come with a label that says distributed by Lipari Foods. It also has a best by date of September 2024. No one's reported sick yet. Salmonella can cause serious infections in young children or elderly people. Healthy people infected with the bacteria may come down with a fever, diarrhea, and vomiting. In rare cases, salmonella can also cause arthritis and arterial infections. Jill Nato, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
Fly even higher and get to your destination with the United Credit Card from First Hawaiian Bank. You can earn 40,000 miles with $2,000 worth of spending within the first 3 months. That's 40,000 reasons to get on board with the First Hawaiian Bank United Credit Card. It all starts with yes. Certain restrictions apply. To learn more about this offer, visit any First Hawaiian Bank branch or go to fhb.com/United.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. You know, you can do a lot of things that I don't like. You can Tucker Carlson. You can do murder. You can do murderous things to our English language, but the right to keep and bear arms cannot be infringed. Okay, there, of course, is no editorial in today's Daily News. Heartbreaking, isn't it, Jose? You know,
it's hard to recover.
It's kind of like your mom when you're a little kid, your mom telling you that she's out of castor oil.
They were out of castor oil when I was a kid. I
Okay.
think they gave them all to your generation.
So I'm going to read something from Candid News, one of Troy's editorials, and it's moving. I'll say that. It's very moving. And it goes like this. My dear brothers and sisters on ice, I believe you when your heart roars from pain underlying your addiction. I have felt that pain too. I hear the screams in your depths when the drug leaves your body and your distorted mind begs for more because the pain of reality seems great. I have screamed from within too. I have begged for more. I have run from reality for decades. But reality is beautiful, believe it or not. Pain and sadness are as fleeting as pleasure and happiness. I know this too. I was a drug addict almost as long as I've lived a sober life. Adulthood, when I became responsible for my decisions, is a different story. My years as a crackhead far outnumbered my years of sobriety. But every day I'm building a portfolio of life and love without addiction that one day will outnumber the days of my darkness. What I have come to learn is that, yes, there are underlying factors. Yes, it started from deep-seated trauma. But every time I plunged that syringe in my veins, it was my decision and no one else's. Every bad decision was mine, no one else's. Every excuse I made for my behavior and my choices, I know now were simply excuses. Qualifications of an adulthood spent wasting precious time and hurting loved ones along the way. But more importantly, and I know this is something difficult for addicts to contend with, I was hurting myself. As an adult, I used to rationalize that as long as I wasn't hurting other people, it was okay for me to pleasure myself with meth. I even made myself believe it made me a more loving, better person. But what I didn't understand then is how impossible it was to love anyone else when I couldn't even love myself, when I couldn't care for myself, when I was poisoning myself, when I would waste the day on nonsense. Truly, the life of an addict is filled with nonsense and insane peculiarities that drive us further and further from our own souls and our humanity. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm one of you. And so as kindred souls, allow me please to express how glad I am my addiction ended way before Doug Moylan became the Attorney General. Because my brothers and sisters on meth, Doug Moylan ain't playing. I'm sure he prays for us and feels for our trauma, But as the elected Attorney General, he doesn't care what excuses we make for ourselves. Attorney General Doug Moylan has spent 4 months in office doing exactly what he said he would do. He's prosecuting every single drug offender the cops bring to his doorstep. And for good measures, he's very likely to take 1 or 2 of these innocuous drug possession cases through full trial and get convictions to demand full sentences. And because of the havoc addicts have caused in our community, Moylan will have overwhelming support of the public. The poor defendant who has the unfortunate luck of being chosen as the example to be made will be kicking and screaming from what he or she thought would be a simple case for a plea deal, all the way to a prison sentence of 15 years, and the people will celebrate. Doug Moylan is not 3 asterisking around. I implore you, my brothers and sisters, and I know you've thought about it many times throughout your years of addiction. If for no other reason, quit now because you don't want to risk being a target of Doug Moylan's agenda to rid this island of the meth scourge. I know many of you, so intelligent, kind, and filled with so much to offer this island. Kill the darkness of your addiction and let your light shine. Troy Torres. Well, an interesting, Troy can write, you got to give him that. An interesting piece, worth reading for its literary value, if for no other reason. But it also causes me to have hope because, you know, we start out with a proposition that meth is so horrible that there's no turning back from it. And Troy is living proof that there is turning back from it. And of course, he's told us before, you know, some of the things that he did. He didn't mention it in this editorial, but Troy has embraced his Catholic faith and tells us that he has taken great comfort from that. So starting the program on a high note and descending rather rapidly from there.
What a departure from the usual editorial where they just talk about treatment and hugs and puppy dogs and rainbows and flowers.
Yeah.
He talks about actually owning up responsibility for what you've done and paying for it.
Yeah.
And then, but also recovery, that there's hope. That's what real discipline is, and that's what real compassion for these drug addicts are. Not to coddle them.
No.
Not to treat them like victims.
Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely right, Jose. Okay, let's take a look at today's card. Of course, we talk about systemic racism, and I'm not going to go into it, but systemic racism has nothing to do with cooking, dyeing, achoti, etc. It's
Susans.
Students.
Susans.
Say again?
Susans.
Susans.
Susan racisms.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's an analogy. Okay, and then we go on to Rupert versus Tucker. And boy, what a shock. First thing I'm up this morning, I'm out on my front porch with a hot cup of coffee and a banana and ready to start enjoying my day. And blap. It's like a slap in the face. Fox got rid of Tucker. Second item on the card is us versus Biden. And another, Joe, if you call in, I'll be able to hear you, and you will have a license to talk about compact impact today. Your time has finally come, another Joe. And then back to Doug in the district court. I've got the decision in order from the district court dismissing Doug's petition to dissolve the injunction that's barring enforcement of Bell's Law. And then I'm going to go to Doug versus the CCU and the plan. And then after that, I've got Enriquez versus Okada versus Quisenberry in my evaluation. AG versus Jansen, that's probably as far as I'm going to get. So once again, here it is. Systemic racism's got nothing to do with rice, nothing to do with Atoti, everything to do with racism. Going through the public law, 3634 agenda again, I'm looking at the Land Use Commission. The Land Use Commission has a heavy-duty item on its agenda. Under new business is an application by Niraj Nadaragajan for a zone change from A to M1 zone. Now, these are heavy-duty things. Probably council involved, a lot of money involved. If you can change from A to M1, your property becomes immediately more valuable. So that's item 5. Here's item 6, administrative and miscellaneous matters. Boom. The whole thing is void. So anybody that doesn't want Mr. Nagarajan to get that zone changed, there's your ticket. Because that action is void. When are people going to finally wake up? And then we've got the agenda for the Visitors Bureau board meeting. And the Visitors Bureau is going to meet on Thursday, the 27th. That's day after tomorrow at 1:30 at the GVB conference room. And you can go to a virtual meeting. Sometime when we got a chance, I'm going to talk about how much I hate virtual meetings, Jose. Yeah, I know it's easier and it's more convenient. And,
it doesn't mean it was almost a meeting? It was virtually a meeting.
Virtually a meeting, exactly. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it at this. If you are weak in the skills of persuasion, virtual meeting is for you. If you feel confident that you have the ability to persuade people, to help them see your point of view, avoid virtual meeting like the plague. Because trying to persuade on a virtual meeting is like taking a shower with your bathing suit on. It just doesn't work.
You know, I don't remember the agenda saying we spent 10 minutes asking people if they can hear us. Turn on your video. Your mute button is not on.
Yeah, there's that too.
And we've run out of time, people. We'll see you next month.
Yeah. But even when the system's working perfectly, it filters out the humanity that you have in a real live face-to-face discussion.
The dynamics are completely different.
They really are. Yeah. Okay, so I'm just zeroed in on 2 items here on the agenda for the next visitors board meeting. Under old business discussion, A, review of legal counsel, B, review of management. And there is a possibility. I'm not betting on it. I'm not even going to give odds, and I'm not even going to get out my dollars and donuts. But there's a strong possibility that the Carl and Joe McDonald could get Sanchez at this meeting. Sanchez or Bothad at this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, the proper verb is probably Sanchez or Simon, right?
Simon, yeah.
Yeah, Simon. Yeah, you could get Simon at that meeting. Well, we'll just watchful waiting here. We'll pretend we're doctors and we'll engage in watchful waiting. Okay, next is Rupert versus Tucker. And I'm a Tucker Carlson fan. I test positive for the Fox News virus. I get, and of course, we live with Fox News right here. We've got Clay and Buck that do the warm up for my show, and then I know that what's his name?
Brian Kilmeade.
Oh, the other guy.
Oh. I forgot him too.
Comes on right after my show. Yeah.
Oh, Sean Hannity?
Yeah, Sean. I know Sean is really grateful to have that spot in the lineup because I'm sure he figures that the listeners will all tune in for Bob.
Your draw helps.
Yeah, and there's the draw, and then they'll just stay tuned in for Sean's show. And you know the way those things work, with only one exception, that is that the Point doesn't pay to run those shows. The give and take is this, that the sponsors of those shows are able to charge advertising fee for every outlet where that show runs. So because Tucker runs here, that puts some money in Fox News's pocket. And the same with Sean. Now, the one exception to that was Rush Limbaugh. You want to run Rush Limbaugh, you got to pay for Rush Limbaugh. And that's why another radio station had Rush Limbaugh. They had him early in the morning, but they discontinued it. They didn't want to spend the money. And, if there's ever been a case where you can be penny wise and pound foolish, it's radio. If you don't have people that are good at what they do, nobody's going to want to listen, and you're not going to make any money. Rush turned out to be, Rush is the guy that saved AM radio. Because when, FM came along a long, long time ago, but it was kind of like and then there's that other one. What's it called? FM. Yeah, but nobody paid a whole lot of attention to it. But, of course, the fidelity is better on FM than it is on AM. AM standing for amplitude modification. Amplitude modification. And FM frequency modulation, frequency modulation. So by changing the frequency, you could change the quality of the sound. So FM became more and more popular, more and more music, less and less talk radio. But when Rush came along, and I read a workup on this, when Rush came along, he filled the gap. Because if you ever listen to Rush's show, and is there anyone in the world that never listened to Rush? Rush had a style of delivery where you wondered if he ever had to breathe because it seemed like it was a constant sound. It's very much like listening to music on the radio because there was never any break in the sound. And people who were very used to listening to AM radio were very much at home with Rush Limbaugh because subconsciously they identified with that rapid fire sound without any break in it at all, just as though they were listening to music.
Sold.
And then, of course, content and creativity really added to it. So Tucker's out at Fox News. So, man, times are getting tough here. Rush is gone. Tucker's out. He leaves it all up to just me and Ray. It's going to be a tough job, Jose, but by God, we're going to handle it.
But who else?
Yeah, who else can do it? Yeah, if not us, then who? Yeah. Why is Tucker Carlson leaving Fox News? This is a story by Robert Suave that ran in a publication called Reason. Fox News shook the very foundations of the earth on Monday when the conservative cable giant announced that its top talent, Tucker Carlson, was finished. Fox News Media and Tucker Carlson have agreed to part ways. Yeah, I bet they agreed. Yeah, Tucker, this is Rupert Murdoch. Tucker, that's it. Don't let the door hit you in the ass on the way out. Yeah, okay, Rupert. That was what they agreed on. Tucker was going to protect his posterior. That was the only agreement they had. We thank him for his service to the network as a host and prior to that as a contributor. This is an unexpected development, to say the least. Carlson is the biggest star in conservative media. Yeah, well, It's close, but he's right, Jose. He's got a little bit bigger platform than mine, so I kind of got to. But if he didn't, I really think I could take him on.
Well, he certainly doesn't reach your heights.
Exactly. He's one of the most influential voices in Republican Party politics. And most importantly, he was Fox's most popular host, drawing over 3 million viewers for his 8 p.m. show each night. A rational person might have expected the network to approach a theoretical Carlson exit with extreme trepidation. And yet, Fox is giving every indication that the decision to part ways was sudden and dramatic. Last Friday's installment will serve as the final hour of Tucker Carlson tonight. In another workup, I saw that Tucker signed off by saying, "That's it for tonight. See you Monday."
Sure did.
Yeah, so, man, talk about sudden. Much like former host Bill O'Reilly, who was pushed out over sexual misconduct allegations, Carlson was not given the opportunity to produce a goodbye episode. As of Monday morning, Fox was still promoting a forthcoming interview between Carlson and GOP presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. Monday morning. Wow.
That would have been a great interview if we see it.
Yeah. So Monday morning they're doing that, and they decide after that Tucker's not going to do them. Boy, you just got to wonder what the dynamics of it were.
It wasn't planned because I think he's still on the app as well, because I was looking up his shows just a couple hours ago.
Yeah, and that's still what they're highlighting, huh? The departure comes, of course, in the immediate aftermath of Fox's settlement with Dominion Voting Systems, which obligated the network to pay $787 million to avoid a defamation suit. That's a lot of money, Jose, $787 million. Now, I want to stop here and talk about that for a minute. We haven't talked about it before. And this was a case of what's called libel per se. There are 4 kinds of libel. There's libel per se, libel per quod, Q-U-O-D, and a couple of other ones, the names of which I don't remember. But for the other 3, a successful plaintiff in a libel suit has to prove up damages. Not only that what was said was false, but that the false statement actually harmed the person who was the victim of the false statement. If it's libel per se, there are four different versions of libel per se. Let's see if I can remember them. One is to disparage a person in his employment or occupation, and that's, of course, Dominion. Second, accusing or claiming chastity, a lack of chastity. You can tell how old this doctrine of law is, right? 3, stating that a person has the loathsome disease. I'm not going to mention the loathsome disease, but it starts with an S and it ends with an S. A loathsome, it's a venereal disease.
Oh, I thought leftism.
It should be.
It doesn't fit the S, though.
It should be, yeah. And then the 4th one, I can't even remember. But the libel per se means that, and that's the employment or profession, right? And you don't need to prove damages. So although the Fox ponied up $787 million, it's conceivable that the jury could have come in with, say, a $10 billion verdict. And of course, when you have a verdict in a libel case, there's not only actuals, which are kind of irrelevant here, but punitives. Now, 787 is not that is not that bad for Fox, which has a net worth of over $4 billion. So they're this is not going to hurt them. It's going to hurt them, but I suspect Rupert Murdoch is not going to have to sell his Mercedes because of it. So I guess what we would say is, from the financial standpoint, they played it safe. From the public relations standpoint, they also played it safe. And you saw what a powerful tool pre-trial discovery was in this case. Where we got all of these situations where these folks at Fox either didn't know or forgot about the Stringer Bell rule. And it really came home to haunt them. All of these things, all of these texts and WhatsApps and stuff where they said stuff that really, they stuck out their tongues and cut their throats with them, is what it amounts to. Well, if you could get that in pretrial discovery and make a big splash with it, think about what it would be like in trial, where you've got Rupert Murdoch on the stand with a skilled cross-examiner taking him apart. And Rupert has been around the block so many times, with the, what was it, World Daily News in London that he had to flange up because
Sky News, I think, right?
Close.
Was it?
Yeah. He had to flange that up. He's been sued before.
Oh, yeah.
He's a veteran. And, if we know this about him, you got to wonder, are there any other skeletons in his closet? And to put the leading lights of Fox News on the stand like Tucker Carlson and dragging them through that mud, it greatly diminishes. It's not an out-of-pocket cost, but it devalues. It greatly diminishes the value of the franchise. Because, already, if you just look at the internet right now, the left is overcome with schadenfreude, taking great joy in someone else's misfortune. And, there are some people that if I see them, I'm going to put my mask on and put my big aviator sunglasses on and hope they don't recognize me, because I know what the conversation is going to be like. Bob, I told you so. I told you about Fox News. Do you believe me now? Yeah. So you can see why they wanted to avoid trial, and you can see the financial benefit. But this is really far out. This is beyond conspiracy theory. You got to wonder if there was sort of a sub rosa protocol that went with this settlement, where somebody from Dominion said to Rupert Murdoch, "Well, we're going to let you off easy. We're going to let you off with $787 million, but you got to can Tucker Carlson. No more Tucker Carlson. If he's still on the air, get out your best suit, Rupert, because we're going to trial." I don't know if that's even possible. I think for a lawyer to do that, it would be disbarment time. For a couple of guys, a couple of gals, a couple of folks on the fringes, you don't know. It reminds me of when Jack Kennedy was able to take a victory lap for beating up Nikita Khrushchev to the point that Khrushchev withdrew those missiles from Cuba. Remember that? And several years later, we find out that the other half of the deal was that we would remove our rockets from Turkey, but we'd wait 6 months to do it, and Khrushchev agreed to keep it on the down low. Yeah. So the great hero Jack Kennedy wasn't all that great after all. Okay, going on with this article. It wasn't immediately clear whether the two things are related. Carlson privately expressed doubts about the stolen election claims and eventually denounced Sidney Powell on air. And, you know, when Sidney Powell first came along, remember, she was the guy that got that general out from under a prosecution. I can't remember his name. Part of Trump's cabinet that was the Justice Department, and she talked justice out of it. And I thought, man, this lady packs some heavy gear. Until I caught her on TV a couple of times, and I thought, this is not good. Let's take a short break, and we'll come back to Sidney Powell.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Now, Simon has an interesting comment here. Giving up 15% of your net worth is a big hit, avoiding a bigger hit. Good point, Simon. Okay, so Carlson privately expressed doubts about stolen election claims and eventually denounced Sidney Powell on air for failing to produce any evidence to support her wild theories, and her theories were really wild. If Fox is punishing its hosts for how they covered President Donald Trump's election conspiracy theories, Carlson is not the obvious place to start. The LA Times, however, reported that Rupert Murdoch, head of Fox Empire, that's Daddy. He's an old man. I think he's 84 years old, Jose. Yeah, wow, the guy's ancient.
Youngster.
Yeah. He personally made, according to the LA Times, Rupert personally made the call to fire Carlson, in part because of his dissatisfaction with Carlson's coverage of January 6th. You know, you remember Carlson was able to get the tapes from January 6th. And
he got a Buffalo Head guy out.
Yeah, yeah. So you'd think that would be the kind of thing that Rupert would like. You know, that his guy has scooped everybody else. There's little doubt this decision would have come from the very top. The Washington Compost contends that private messages uncovered during the Dominion discovery process in which Carlson disparaged his bosses upset network executives. I wonder if maybe he said something like, you know, Rupert runs the show, but if you get to know him, he's a dirty skunk and an honorary pig stealer.
How dare you!
Some media reporters have pointed to a different potential source of trouble. Fox faces a lawsuit from Amy Grossberg, a former booker for Carlson's show, who has alleged sexual harassment. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about Amy Grossberg's sexual harassment, Jose. I got this from another source. Amy said that Tucker is a gross misogynist. And as an example, she said the first day she showed up at Tucker's studio, she was appalled to see a large portrait of Nancy Pelosi in a swimming suit. Well, you know, I don't care about
My eyes are burning.
misogyny. Okay, misogyny. You know, I'm a man, so I don't like misogyny and I don't engage in it. But I'm not going to get my skivvies all bunched up over it. But if I ever walked in here and saw a picture of Nancy Pelosi in a swimming pool on the wall, I'd have to wear a blindfold for the rest of this show, Jose. Whoa.
How dare you?
Yeah. You know, and this lady's filing suit.
So if you don't die, you'll live.
Yeah, and this is not a tall tale. This is actually, I'm not making.
Oh, that's true.
This is true. I'm not making this up. And, you know, I think it was about 3 months ago, I did come in here with this this digital warning. I said, hey, you guys, folks out there in Tailgater world, I got to warn you about something. If you're cruising around the internet and you see an email that's got a link that said, click here to see Nancy Pelosi naked, whatever you do, don't click on that link. Because she is. Now, that's a story, but this one about the swimming suit, that's actually true. That's why Amy Grossberg, one of the reasons she's suing Tucker Carlson.
For putting that image in her head?
Yeah. It's like that nightmare that, you know, I remember the first time I saw The Thing, not the original Thing. Man, you talk about a scary movie. That movie was so scared. And back in those days, you know, unless your parents are not going to pick you up at the movie, you're going to walk home, you know. So I went to the movie by myself, and I had to walk home that night. Yeah, I was so glad when I got home.
I heard the original one's pretty...
It is scary. I was like 12 years old, and I couldn't get that image out of my head for a month, you know. In fact, probably he's going to come back and haunt me tonight.
Was it wearing a bathing suit?
Yeah. Anyhow, perhaps given all of the above, Murdoch abruptly decided now is the time. For Carlson, there's little doubt he can remain extremely relevant in conservative media circles if he so chooses. He has received an outpouring of support since news broke. Representative Thomas Massey, a Republican from Kentucky, described Carlson's exit as a huge loss for Fox, as well as a wave of offers to collaborate. Glenn Beck invited him to join the Blaze, and Jeremy Boring asked him to come to the Daily Wire. Carlson has reinvented himself many times, from his Crossfire days to a gig at PMSNBC to launching the Daily Caller. Now, I want to go back to Thomas Massey for a second. This guy, you know, got a star from me because back during the pandemic, Nancy came up with this idea of letting people in the House of Representatives vote by proxy. Can you imagine that? I mean, I can't, to me, that is so blatantly against the law that I'm surprised nothing ever got challenged. But when it came up, in the House, they had to do it by unanimous consent. Now, they have a procedure in both houses where if everybody signs off, you just do it by and skip all of it, and it's fast. Man, she said, I'm not going to vote for this. You know, we're members of the House of Representatives. We come here and we say aye or nay. And he screwed things up for weeks, but he did the right thing. And it's hard to find people that'll do the right thing, especially when the folks around. I can imagine the rough time that they gave him, especially the Democrats. But he did the right thing, and Tucker does the right thing. Assuming that Murdoch is one who pulled the trigger, it would appear Fox is confident that ultimately they can replace Carlson. Undoubtedly, they have many stars waiting in the wings. Greg Gutfeld, who hosts the late-night show Gutfeld. I think Gutfeld must listen to Tall Tales, because I think he borrows some of my routines. Gutfeld has pulled in killer ratings, as well as Fox 5 p.m. panel show The Five, which includes Gutfeld. It's a juggernaut that actually beat Carlson's numbers last year. Jesse Waters and Sean Hannity, who host prime time shows before and after Carlson's, are both highly rated. And compared with its rivals at PMSNBC and CNN, Fox overall performance is absolutely dominating. And this will be the case even if Carlson is no longer in the mix. So if you're the New York Yankees and Lou Gehrig is no longer playing first base, guess what? You're still the New York Yankees. Assuming that, as you were, replacing his idiosyncratic perspective is another matter. There are several Fox News personalities with libertarian sensibilities. Gutfeld, Kat Timpf, and of course, Fox Business host Lisa Kennedy, who regularly features reason writers on her show. Once upon a time, Carlson had called himself a libertarian. He was formerly a senior fellow at the Cato Institute, but by the age of Trump, he had decisively turned against libertarians on a host of social and economic issues: immigration, trade, tech, and so on. It was only on foreign policy where viewers could see traces of his former libertarianism. He remained a vocal opponent of neoconservatism, agreed with President Joe Biden on pulling out of Afghanistan, and bucked the bipartisan consensus on unending U.S. military support for Ukraine. He and I are together on that one, that's for sure. Carlson's exit was not only high-profile media departure on Monday. CNN let go of Don Lemon. I don't know why this has to be in the same article. Yeah. You know, a really bad thing happened last night, Jose. My wife bought filet mignons, and as she was cooking the filet mignon, she was distracted, and she burned the filet mignon bad. That was really bad. And then after that, she took out the garbage. Two different events in the same story, right?
But usually when you want to make a great meal, you have to add a little acid to it.
Of course.
Don Lemon's the little acid.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I've got another article here. Report. Here's the reason Tucker Carlson is out at Fox. But I've got somebody in the green room. I hate to keep people hanging in the green room too long. It's another mark on Pelosi. So let's take a short break and we'll come back to another mark on Pelosi.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Express yourself into the group. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Okay, so here we go. We've got another Mark here who wants to talk about Nancy Pelosi. Go ahead, another Mark.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
I couldn't be better, except I feel pretty bad about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what. Let me give you the Nancy Pelosi just first.
All right.
I could not stop laughing. I laughed so hard. I didn't make it to the bathroom when I saw that picture.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it was hilarious. But then I didn't think I could ever laugh that hard again, right? Until I saw a picture of Dylan Mulvaney trying to push sports bras. I just lost it.
A picture is worth 1,000 laughs or something.
Oh, my God. I felt good after those two instances. I mean, I let out all my frustrations, all my worries. I just had one good laugh. But on Carlson, you know how when a person gets fired or gets terminated or whatever, they have understanding that you will not work for a competitive network for, I think, anywhere between 6 and 12 months, regardless of the situation leaving the network, right?
Uh-huh.
You know, Megyn Kelly being the big one. She didn't have a job for 6 months because under the agreement of her termination, she will not be a member of a rival company.
A non-compete.
Yes. Well, Tucker Carlson, he was the scapegoat for this for the Dominion case. The only thing is, if I'm not mistaken of what I've been hearing or what I've been reading, that he was offered a position at OAN. And OAN just won their bid on, censorship when DirecTV pulled them off the network. Now they're back on the network, and when you look at Rupert's on one side going, okay, I have a chance of losing $10 billion, or I can tell this man, okay, thanks for the memories. We'll let you go, but you don't, there's no non-compete. No, find yourself a job, find yourself a position, and go for it. Because wherever Tucker Carlson lands, that's going to be Fox's competitor right off the bat. Because a lot of people that were listening to him and were tracking him and following him are going to follow him wherever he goes, whether it's at OAN, Daily Beat, wherever he goes, he has got a following. Now, when everyone's in there laughing and all this, saying, yeah, it's a good thing it couldn't happen to a nicer person, right? They don't understand that even without Carlson, yes, Fox will still, be up there in the ratings. They might find a decent commentator for that slot, but they won't find one that is willing to delve into the sewers as they did with Carlson. And Carlson didn't take flack from nobody. It don't matter. I mean, if he says, okay, prove it, and they can't prove it, he eats them up. Just like his comments about Powell. He kept on asking Powell, show me the proof, show me the evidence, and she could never show it. That's the main reason why he said this is bunkus. So he stopped pursuing that angle, and everyone's sitting there blaming him about fake news and all this. He goes, no, I just turn around, so I can't push something if there's no evidence, and he flat out said that. But the craziest thing about Fox Network, yes, granted, they're up there and they've got a lion's share of the base. But when you get when you decide to terminate a tiger and no strings attached, he's gonna find a job, and when he lands, it's gonna be really soft. Unlike Don Lemon, that if he finds a job, it's probably gonna be in someone else's basement. Because he doesn't bring anything but controversy wherever he goes, which is, his style. He can't be, he has to be his opinion, his truth, his everything. Whereas you get a man like Carlson that he eats everybody up. It don't matter. You can be a conservative, but if you don't have the facts with him, he's going to tear you up, and everybody knows it. That's the main reason why nobody wants to debate him on their program, because they know if they don't have their ducks in line, this man's going to go nuts. But the one person I think that would do great on his time slot, but I don't think he can hang with every night for once a night for a week in that series of time slot would be Greg Gutfeld, because he jokes around too much. He is he brings fun to politics, but in a factual way.
Well, that's why I thought he's probably watching or listening to Tall Tales, because he picks up some of my stuff.
There you go. But the picture I got, believe it or not, you won't believe where I actually saw that. I follow Tyrus. And it's a little bit ago, but I followed Tyrus and I saw that thing. He goes, "What do you think? Does this replace Farrah Fawcett?" And I just lost it. You remember the 70s Farrah Fawcett poster that everybody in their right mind had a copy of it on the wall?
Which one was that?
That was the reference. No, you remember the Farrah Fawcett Majors poster?
Farrah Fawcett.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, his caption to that was, "Doesn't this throw you back to Farrah Fawcett?"
Yeah, I go back to Betty Grable and June Allison. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, but I know we got about a decade separating us, so But the hilarious point about it is, when you sit there and see something that makes you laugh, that a person turns around and says that's misogynistic, then you're gonna end up going to every Navy ship, every aircraft or what do you call that, Air Force maintenance complex, every Army training base, and rip off every poster that's on there.
Mark, the Navy isn't what it used to be. This is shocking, but I've found out that ships that are being built now have no urinals in the head.
Nope, they figured it out. If you're going to go to the bathroom, you might as well sit down.
Yeah.
And then they wonder how come the sailors are taking too long of a break.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing with us about Nancy's picture, Mark. Appreciate it a lot.
All right, you take care.
So long. And Nancy's picture. Well, we get just about to halftime here, huh?
About 15 seconds or so.
15 seconds or so. We'll break for the big halftime show, and then we go to Jose telling us about being a tailgater. Right, Jose?
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Meeting with federal prosecutors. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Attorneys for President Biden's son Hunter plan to meet sometime this week.
Sources say Hunter Biden's attorneys simply want an update. After all, he has been under federal investigation. It's hard to believe, but almost half a decade. The FBI began investigating him since 2018. There's been no final decisions made right now, but we do know that his attorneys will meet with the U.S. attorney, Trump-appointed U.S. attorney David Weiss, at some point this week. Those details being kept close to the vest. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. Now, will Weiss decide to charge the younger Biden, or will he let him walk? He has a big decision to make. Both sides of the aisle want him to make it soon.
Fox's David Spunt. President Biden will announce that he's running for re-election in just a few hours from now through a video that will debut on social media. Yesterday, the president met with the so-called Tennessee Three, the state lawmakers who disrupted a legislative session by leading an anti-gun protest.
Nothing's guaranteed about democracy. Every generation has to fight for it, and you all are doing just that.
The critics point out the president has yet to visit the Covenant Christian School in Nashville, where 6 people were shot to death leading to that protest. The president called again for a ban on so-called assault weapons following that shooting. A survey finds it's not a popular position.
Pollsters at Monmouth University in New Jersey say 49% of people polled do not support the banning of AR-15s or similar rifles, firearms the survey referred to as assault weapons. It's a change from last year when 55% favored such a ban. Nearly 2/3 of Americans, according to this poll, say only Congress should be able to change federal gun law, such as increasing the number of scenarios for background checking purchasers of firearms or ammo.
Fox's Evan Brown. America is listening to Fox News.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they will continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $4,100 by calling Family Finance in Hagåtña at 671-475-4545, Upper Tumon 671-647-5626, or in Dededo 671-633-4473.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Trial scheduled to begin in New York today on a newspaper columnist's claim that she was sexually assaulted years ago by Donald Trump.
Jury selection is set to begin in the case brought by author E. Jean Carroll, who said in 2019 that former President Trump raped her nearly 25 years before in a Manhattan department store dressing room. The judge in the case has ordered that jurors be kept anonymous. The former president has denied wrongdoing. Carroll was able to bring the charges because of a New York law she lobbied to pass, which created a one-year window for sexual abuse victims to sue their attackers, no matter how long ago the incident happened. The trial follows other legal trouble for the former president, including 34 felony charges in New York City, as well as investigations in Georgia and Washington, D.C. In New York City, Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Oklahoma's Attorney General recommending clemency for Richard Glossip, who'd been convicted of hiring somebody to kill his boss in 1990. While not suggesting that Glossip is innocent, Attorney General Gentner Drummond says he has numerous concerns about the trial, including potential perjury by a key witness. The Board of Pardons and Paroles can accept the recommendation and commute Glossip's sentence to life in prison, or they can reject it and let next month's scheduled execution go on as planned. In Missouri, a murder admission from a respiratory therapist.
Jennifer Halls pleaded guilty to 2 first-degree involuntary manslaughter counts stemming from 2 patient deaths in 2002. The Kansas City Star says the 2 were among 9 patients who had died at a hospital in Chillicothe, Missouri. The case almost went nowhere until an analysis was done on one of the dead patient's tissue samples. Morphine and a muscle relaxant were found, but investigators say neither drug had been prescribed by doctors. Court documents say some hospital staffers suspected Hall because of her proximity to the patients and access to drugs.
Fox's Jill Nato, and I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. No services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Well, hello. Ray Gibson here to tell you it's officially Frontier season at Nissan Guam. Go test drive a new Frontier and own one with no money down. Plus, Nissan will make the first 3 payments for you. You'll love your new Frontier as much as I do mine. Plus, they're giving away cash, all sorts of prizes. Way too much to share in a 30-second commercial, so visit the showroom or visit the website, nissanguam.com today.
So there you go, Rogues Gallery, Tall Tales again. Tell them how to do it, Jose.
Whoa. You too can be part of the Tall Tales Rogues Gallery by pointing your browser to thepoint.gu, the official website of this radio station. There you will find the I'm a Tall Tales Tailgater t-shirt with a beard. Click on that picture and it'll bring you to the website where you can order your shirt. When it arrives, put it on, take a selfie of yourself in that shirt, and send that selfie to the Points WhatsApp at 671-797-8255. Just like Sandra Regis did when she had a Bob Klitzkie sighting and got a selfie with you and herself.
That's how you do it.
That's how you do it.
That's exactly how you do it. And Sandra's there twice now, right?
Twice.
Yeah, good for Sandra. Okay. Here's a report by Matt Margolis in PJ Media, and the title is Report, Here's the Reason Tucker Carlson is Out at Fox. Start out with the same press release that I read from the other story, and then it goes on to say, no other details were offered, leading to speculation that his departure may have been connected to the recent settlement with Dominion Voting Systems over 2020 election coverage. But according to the Los Angeles Times, individuals familiar with the matter who were not authorized to speak on it, well, that gives them a lot more credibility, right? It's kind of like it's being anonymous to a fault. Were not authorized to speak on it suggested that the decision to terminate Carlson's employment was made directly by Rupert Murdoch, the chairman of Fox. According to the report, Murdoch has been concerned about the hosts reporting on the January 6th Capitol riot. Carlson's coverage of the riot included presenting footage not shown by the January 6th committee. Among other things, the footage shows Capitol Police escorting the so-called QAnon shaman, whose name is Jacob Chansley, around the Capitol and letting him into spaces. The footage prompted Marjorie Taylor Greene, also known as Empty Green, and others to call for Chansley to get a retrial. Jacob Chansley deserves a retrial, she tweeted. All he did was non-violently walk around the Capitol wearing a costume while being escorted by Capitol Police. I'm sick of the lies and the double standard. Other footage presented by Carlson showed Capitol Police Officer Brian Sicknick walking around after the riot, contradicting the liberal claims that he was killed during the violence. Tucker also reported on evidence that suggested that federal agents may have been the ones who incited the violence. According to court documents, the undercover agents seen in the body cam footage were not only observed, but actively encouraging the protesters with chants like, "Go, go, go, stop the steal, whose house, our house, go, No, they didn't say that. Now, once again, you'd think that this would make Rupert Murdoch happy, but the curious thing about the report that Murdoch was directly responsible for pushing Tucker out is that last month, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, also known as Chucky, called for Tucker to be censored, insisting that Murdoch has a special obligation to stop Tucker Carlson from going on tonight now that he's seen how perverted and slimed the truth, and from letting him go on again and again. Democrats may have wanted Tucker out of that at Fox News, but wherever he ends up next, he could be an even bigger problem for them. Yeah, because there'll be a certain martyrdom assigned to Tucker now, and there'll be a certain villainy ascribed to the Murdoch father and son. Fox is going to come out of this okay, because none of the folks that are left standing are going to mention Tucker's name, although I heard this on my way over here. I heard, what's her name, Faulkner, announcing that Tucker would not be on tonight, that they'd be rotating hosts, etc. So it's kind of like, after all of the stuff came out in the Dominion lawsuit, Fox didn't say boo about it for about 2.5 weeks before they finally addressed it. So this is going to be an extremely interesting story to follow. And you could bet that if the next time Tucker Carlson opens his mouth and says only something like, "Pass the black-eyed peas," it's going to be front page in every newspaper story, and it's going to be the lead story in every TV station. Because as big as he was, he's even bigger now.
And you know what? It's I remember when Fox got rid of Glenn Beck.
Mm-hmm.
It was minorly controversial because he was a pretty good ratings getter, but not
a star.
Not a star like Tucker. Bill O'Reilly, that was kind of a shock also, but the impact right now is much different.
Much greater.
And much greater, right. And this is going to be interesting to watch the next couple of days.
Yeah. Okay, well, Tucker, anytime you're in the neighborhood, stop in, and I'm going to let you have the mic as long as you want it. Right up to 2 hours, if you so desire. Okay, next item on the card here is Joe Biden versus Guam. And what that relates to, another Joe, is that the Bureau of Insular Affairs at the U.S. Department of Interior has announced that Joe Biden's next budget will not have any compact impact funds in it. But instead, what they're going to do is change all of the laws so that habitual residents from the freely associated states will be entitled to all of the social programs that everybody else is entitled to. And that's really great, isn't it? Now, I've talked about this before, but I want to call your attention again to something that most people perhaps overlook, and that's this, that Guam is an extremely important part of the of America's foreign policy. Because we could see now the rivalry between China and Taiwan over all of the islands in the Pacific. China and Taiwan want to have alliances with all of the islands that they can sign up. They're willing to pony up big bucks for it. And China's strategy is to infiltrate all of these islands. Up until probably 15 years ago, foreign policy experts would refer to the Pacific Ocean as an American lake. You know, we control the key parts of the Pacific. We had the biggest navy. It was an American lake with our bases on both shores and so on. It's not an American lake anymore. And China is really, really flexing its muscles and trying to make inroads in everything outside the 9 islands out into the second chain. And that's the Caroline Islands and the Marshall Islands. The Caroline Islands being the Republic of Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands being the Republic of the Marshall Islands. All three of those countries have treaties with the United States where they agree that there will be no foreign military housed on their islands, and that they'll have a certain diplomatic relationship with the United States, and the United States is going to give them big money. But one of the real sweeteners, there are two real sweeteners to that deal for the freely associated states. One is that folks from the freely associated states can enlist in the American Armed Forces. And boy, do a lot of them ever do it. And if you're a young guy or young gal growing up in Pohnpei or Chuuk or Kosai, wherever, that is a future you'll never find on any one of those islands.
Do they have the same path to citizenship?
They do.
Okay.
They do. 3 years in the armed forces, and they can apply for naturalization. If you are a citizen of one of the freely associated states and you come here pursuant to the compact, when you get here, you are not a permanent resident. You're what's called a habitual resident. Now, 5 years as a permanent resident, you're eligible for naturalization. 5 years as a habitual resident, no felonies, you're eligible to be a habitual resident. It's the end. So the enlisting in American Armed Forces is a big sweetener. And then the other one is the ability for people from the freely associated states to come to Guam as a habitual resident. The last time I checked, there were 11,000 people from the freely associated states here. Maybe that's a little bit more than there are, but there are a lot here. And once again, it's an opportunity that they'd never, ever have if they're at home. The economies of those islands is marginal at best. People can come here, get a job, make money, etc. So that's a real sweetener. And because it is a sweetener, it makes it possible for the United States to negotiate these treaties with the freely associated states. So the fact that we get to entertain all of these people from the freely associated states, that's not for us. That's an important element of American foreign policy. Now, unlike the other things that we like to kvetch about and engage in huge amounts of feeling sorry for ourselves and blabbering about colonialism and all that stuff, this is a real grievance. because we are an element of American foreign policy, and we're doing it out of our own pockets. Even with the compact impact, it wasn't enough. And now we're not going to get that, and we're supposed to be satisfied because someday maybe you'll get all of the, which doesn't put any money in our pockets. It puts money in the pockets of the habitual residents. So it doesn't make any sense at all. Now, I've got some strategy here for our government that I'm going to lay on you, but I notice I got a couple people who want to chime in here, so I'll let them in, and then I'll tell you some of my strategy. We got Frenchie and Jesse. I wonder what happened to another Joe. I'm going to take Jesse because he's on the COFA aspect, and then I'll get to Frenchie. Go ahead, Jesse.
Hey, good afternoon. I was just, add to the sweet deal that the COFA migrants get. You said, as you said, they're habitual residents, right?
That's the official
the big value,
categorization.
The big value I think they get also is if they have a child here on Guam, they become a U.S. citizen. And first off, for other foreign nationals, when they come here, I mean, I think you got to spend a lot of money to get to even get to that process, to even be on Guam. I mean, to be living here, and so that's also a big plus, and then that creates another problem for the compact impact, because now they're going to say, okay, when it comes to deportation, you can't deport U.S. citizens, although their parents are habitual residents. They're not U.S. nationals. And then, again, that skews the data again, because now, again, you have this mixture of descendants of habitual residents that have become U.S. citizens. And I think also that was another problem with, like, when DOE and with all the government agencies, that was throwing things off, because they're saying, the people that are reviewing the data, or analyzing the data, are saying, a lot of these people are actually U.S. citizens, especially in the prisons in DOC. A lot of the inmates are U.S. citizens. So that kind of created this problem over the years, and I think that's something, again, we just haven't really maybe no one thought about or ever saw that would become a problem. Or but at the end of the day, that's a huge value. Some people have to stay here for years just to become a national, and maybe in between they might have a kid or on island or something. But I'm not sure. They also had a thing where Korean tourists came to Guam and they were giving birth here, and then that way their child can become a U.S. citizen. And it was a big scam, I guess, that the government caught on to. So it's kind of just interesting, And it's going to be a big problem with the money we're going to lose if it does happen. And then also, hopefully we get some kind of reimbursement. But I guess they're saying now that the contribution that the COFA migrants have made on Guam too is they need to weigh that. So that's another problem again we're going to run into.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling, Jesse. You made some good points. Thank you. So here's how it works. If you are born on American soil, including Guam, you are a birthright citizen. You're a citizen from birth. If you are a foreign citizen and you want to become a United States citizen, you have to enter the United States on an immigrant visa. And it's very difficult to get an immigrant visa. Once you get here, you get your green card, and 5 years of green card, 5 years of permanent residence, you can then naturalize. So when one of these people, one of the folks from the freely associated states arrives, if there is a child, the child's born here, that child then becomes an American citizen. Now, the smart money is always saying, yeah, and then he can petition it. No, because none of that happens until that child is 21. So it's an immediate impact, but it's the way the country has been since, what was the name of that guy? I can't remember the name. There was a Chinese immigrant who was born here, even though we had the Chinese Exclusion Act that said no more immigrants from China, and he was a citizen by birth. So that's pretty deeply embedded in our legal system. Let's see who else I got here. I got another Joe. I'm going to let another Joe talk about COFA, but we got to go to Wrigley Field first.
Half a day. This is Claire Manglona from Security Title with an important warning. Wire fraud is real, and home buyers and sellers are one of the biggest targets, even on Guam. When sending money by wire transfer, be sure to confirm the wire instructions by phone, not email. In this case, it's good to be suspicious and know who you're dealing with. Let the professionals at Security Title work with you to minimize loss due to wire fraud. We are here to help.
Join us at Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro and see why they've been crowned Guam's best Chamorro food restaurant for 9 consecutive years. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tenactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet burgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagatna location from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for lunch, 5:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for dinner, or 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. for their famous Sunday brunch.
So here we are in Wrigley Field, Chicago, the world's most beautiful ballpark. And I've got another Joe on the line. Another Joe is sort of our in-house expert on compact impact for years. Regardless of what the topic was, Joe wanted to talk about compact impact. So can you hear me, another Joe?
Sure can, Bob. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I do have an opinion. And I am a U.S. citizen, so that used to count for something, right?
It does indeed. Yeah.
All right. So it seems as though our national government is playing games at an international scale with our national security and the well-being of Guam in general. You know, the residents of Guam, U.S. citizens. When we've had a history of mishaps when our national government doesn't pay attention to national security interests.
Do we have to go there, another Joe? I said at the beginning of this discussion that we finally have something that we can sink our teeth into instead of the self-pity and virtue signaling and all of that stuff that everybody trots out. It never works. It never does any good. But it makes a certain element of the population feel better. So if you want to talk about COFA, go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, basically they should just, seriously help pay for the expenses of, the needs of Guam, helping assist with COFA citizens. I mean, I prefer they become U.S. citizens myself. Let's have new U.S. territories, but that's for them to decide. And I think they should put it on the table, Bob. Whether they would like to become new.
Well, another Joe, they had a chance when the trust territory was broken up. I've covered that on the show. The Northern Marianas wanted to become part of the United States. The other islands all wanted to be independent. America's position in the beginning was one country, and all you islands are going to be in the same country. But they relented on that, and we wound up with 3 independent countries and a new U.S. territory.
Well, they still negotiate, don't they? So it could still be on the table. couldn't it, Uncle Bob?
Well, they could ask, but I'm afraid that ship has already sailed, because what would be in it for the United States that they don't already have?
Well, I mean, look at China. They're threatening the military force, and it will seem as though the chips are still on the table. So I'm just saying, Uncle Bob.
What would the United States? How would the United States would be better off if those islands were territories instead of what they are right now?
Oh, they couldn't be negotiating with China as to China's playing a game really really
but
well.
they've agreed that they're not going to play that. They're not going to sign up with China. So that's the major benefit for us. Not that we want them so badly, just that we don't want anybody else to have them.
Yeah. Well, then we're going to have to look at, really objectively, really take a look at how to get attention for, every year this comes up, regarding COFA countries and how to compensate, pay for the needs of their citizens, and so maybe we put someone like you in charge, Uncle Bob. You can really articulate for us.
That's exactly what I'm getting ready to do, is to articulate what I think our next move or moves ought to be. Another Joe.
Thanks a lot, Uncle. I'll keep listening and hear your wisdom.
All right.
Thanks for your time.
All right, we'll take a short break from that. We'll let Frenchie talk about Tucker for a minute, and then I'll come back and pick that up. Go ahead, Frenchie.
Yes, good afternoon. Like you said, can you hear me?
No, I can't hear you, Frenchie.
Oh,
what did you say?
Okay, I'll speak louder then. So, anyhow, I think all the things you read about Tucker, they're all true in certain ways. I think from an historic point of view, you learn that there are always deep-rooted causes, and then the immediate causes of what creates a conflict. And then I think Tucker knew for quite a while that there was a lot of people at Fox, starting with Paul Ryan from Wisconsin, who is one of the chief rhinos. Of course, all the politicians on both sides of both parties who are neocons, because over the years, Tucker had evolved in being anti-foreign wars, a lot along the way of Trump, even though not exactly the same. And what we've seen with him exposing some of the things the government didn't want us to see from January 6th. And I was watching this weekend his Saturday speech in front of the Heritage Foundation. And basically all the things that you read about, he kind of talked about, and he even said he probably knew something was a little bit on the thing, because even though he prepared his show this morning, Monday morning, for Monday evening, and that never happened. On Saturday, he said, well, I hope I'll see you on Fox on Monday, but we'll see. So he had a inkling of what was coming. What is very interesting is that it happened just at the beginning of the presidential campaign. And it is obvious that now Fox wants to be more of a, like the other medias, even though they have other conservative and libertarians on the show, they more or less toe the line of the editor, which is something that Tucker was not doing. He had a lot more freedom. Now, what will be very fascinating and see where it's going to go and how he's going to approach that. He already had gotten a lot of independence with his websites and so on. And we will see, everybody from the Daily Wire to Newsmax was asking him to come and be with them because they know he has a huge draw. And it's very different than from the other people at Fox that left. But you can see all the Fox alumni that are gone were basically saying the same thing, that the young, the sons of the major shareholder are very close to Ryan, and they're all very close to the neocons, and the neocons couldn't stand Tucker. So it's going to be fascinating to see what's happening. Now I forgot, I have a little senior moment there, what I wanted to bring back to, but it's going to be, I think, one of the big steps of the war of communication. I think the Dems are panicking with what's happening at with Elon Musk, and they are very afraid that Elon Musk had a very interesting interview with Tucker just 2 weeks ago, where they approached some of the freedom of information in the news. It would not surprise me a bit if Elon Musk doubled down and made actually Twitter a real news organization with somebody like Tucker and others joining. It would be interesting. So, yeah, very interesting. And I was listening to Jesse during his intervention about the immigration issue in the situation that we have. It's nothing new. That's what's happening in a lot of states in the U.S. where people want to become U.S. citizen and they have births here, and that's, like you explained, it's something that is quite common, and it's part of the price we have to pay. Now we have to. I was listening to the delegate intervention on the floor the other day, and he didn't even approach that. I don't know. It looks like he might have been already influenced by the neocons. And then we know that the Taiwan issue is not as black and white as they want us to believe, because the next election, which will be in January, and the campaign is already started in Taiwan, the pro-Chinese KMT will probably win the election. So, the fear-mongering, the saber rattling, and all those things is something that we have to watch. But and that is something that Tucker was talking about often and denouncing, not only with Ukraine but also with Taiwan. But then the Taiwanese issue, of course, impacts us directly. And the other thing that's going to impact us less directly but still very strongly, it's something that very few people have wrapped their mind around. It is the Arctic route in the summer, because if the Russian and the Chinese finish building that Arctic route, then basically all the traffic through the Suez Canal and so on will be mute, because it won't impact China, and the defense plan that the Navy has developed will be totally having to be withdrawn and redrawn, and so it's quite fascinating. And I'm kind of sad that Tucker left, because he was starting to explaining to people those issues, and so right now they will have to go at someplace else besides Fox to go and get it.
Okay, Frenchie, thanks for chiming in on that one. So back to compact impact. So here we are, and I explained that what we're talking about here is not something that is in the ordinary scheme of federal territorial relations. What we're talking about here is Guam being an important part of the American foreign policy in dealing with 3 foreign countries. And it's a real benefit. It's a real chip for us to play on the foreign policy chessboard, and we're having to pay for it instead of the national government. So, and I haven't seen it yet. In fact, it's almost too late. But this is what I think we should do. This is something that we have to treat like a fire in a wastebasket. And if I had been whispering in her ear, I would have told the Governor, you get on the plane for Washington tomorrow. You know, not the next time there's some kind of a conference in the States. You get on the plane tomorrow, and you take General Cruz with you, and you take a couple of other trusted advisors with you, if you have any, and you take them along, and you give Jimmy Moylan a heads up, tell him to alert all of the media outlets in the national capital, and you get over there and you do some radical things. You know, if you have to grab a poster and parade in front of the White House, you do it. And you emphasize what I've been talking about here for the last quite a long time. That is that America, the front lines of American defense in China run through the island of Guam. We are defending you guys over here, you 50 states. And we do it gladly. We do it, you know, with a sense of gratitude that we have the opportunity to be an important part of the defense of the country that we all love so much. But this saddling us with this foreign policy element, you're going too far. You're going way too far. If you want to negotiate sweetheart deals with the 3 island nations south of us, fine. You have at it. But don't expect us to pay for it. And that's what's been happening. It's cost us $1 billion to support your foreign policy. Now, imagine how that's going to sound on the TV networks and on the front page of the Wall Street Journal and the Washington Compost. And Tucker, bless his soul. But that's what we need to do. This is not colonialism strikes again and all of that same old stuff. Poor us. We're, nobody ever treats us right. No! Get out there and get in front of it and do something. And that's my suggestion as to how to go about handling it. And there are a lot of folks that live in what we call the Acela corridor between the city of New York and Washington District of Columbia. Rally those troops. Get them to come down and demonstrate at the Capitol. Just tell them to behave. But it's time to do that because this is really sticking it to us. It was bad enough when they weren't giving us enough money. But now to say, well, we're not going to give you any money anymore, but, those programs out there, we'll see if we can't get the FSM folks into that. It's just so wrong. But if you don't react to it, if you don't grab it, nobody else is going to. Nobody else is going to fight this out for you. And Jim Moylan writing a letter to the president is not going to crack this nut. So you got to do something, Governor. This is your time. This is your legacy to really do something and really make a name for yourself and for this island. And if you do it right, it'll be the classic case of getting a dozen lemons and turning it into lemonade, because it will finally be the opportunity for us to grab the media spotlight and say, look at us out here. We are a really interesting community. We've got tourism. We got a beautiful island. We've got a $4 billion gross island, on and on and on. But I'm just cynical that this is going to happen.
The governor also has a very well-touted liaison in D.C. who we were told, has great relationships with people in Congress that are still there.
Yeah.
How come that's not been an option, or at least said anything about what's going on? I'm being kind of sarcastic about it because we know that's not going to happen.
No.
But we've been spending lots of money for exactly that.
Yep. Well, my sense is this. I don't want Congress to solve this for us right away. I see this as a great opportunity for us to finally attract the right kind of attention to ourselves. This is a potential blessing, but it's like so many other things. You've got to address it. Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste. So that would be my way of handling it. Governor, if you want me to give you a little bit more insight, 888 talk. We'll work it out. Okay, let's head for Churchill Downs, Jose.
Express yourself into the groove. The Guam Chamber of Commerce celebrates its 99th anniversary at the Dusatani Resort on May 6th with the theme of Madonna's Vogue. The Chamber's membership includes many corporations, large and small, entrepreneurs, and nonprofit organizations. Members play a key part in making Guam a star-bright place to live, work, and play. Let's congratulate the Guam Chamber of Commerce and its members on celebrating its 99th anniversary.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Okay, so here we are at Churchill Downs. I got to tell you something, Jose. I've been sitting here jabbering all this time, and, you know, this is hard work, and I got to admit, I'm just about tuckered out. Yeah. So let's turn to Doug Moylan for a minute here. You know, Doug went before the district court. He's also before the Supreme Court, and yesterday I read a key part of his brief that he filed at the Supreme Court in that so-called declaratory judgment that reads like this: the government of Guam joins the legal position of amicus curiae and former Senator Robert Klitzkie, who contends in his brief that this high court has no jurisdiction over this matter due to petitioner, that's the governor, due to her lack of standing. But then I've also talked a little bit about the district court, and I have the decision in order from the district court here, and it lays it out pretty clearly exactly what happened. It lays out, you know, the facts of the case, etc., and then it goes on to say, plaintiff, defendant governor of Guam, and defendant Guam Memorial Hospital administrator filed oppositions to Doug Moylan to dissolve the injunction. And defendants governor and GMH administrator both argue that Section 4 and 5 of Bell's Law violate the First Amendment, freedom of speech, etc. They argue that the U.S. Supreme Court's opinion in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization neither impacted nor affected the unconstitutionality of these sections. Defendant governor also argues that Public Law 20-134 was impliedly repealed by subsequent measures, etc. Defendant GMH administrator separately argues that the government did not appeal the District Court of Guam's decision on Sections 4 and 5 of Bell's Law, and therefore any challenges to said sections are foreclosed. If you don't raise it, you don't preserve it, you lose it. Plaintiffs, on the other hand, argue inter alia, which means, among other things, that defendant AG has not met his burden for obtaining relief under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 60B-5. And defendant AG does not and cannot dispute that both the ban on pre-viability abortion and solicitation of abortion violated the laws of the U.S. applicable to Guam when Bell's Law was passed. Because the abortion ban violated the laws of the United States applicable to Guam, the Guam legislature lacked the authority to enact such a ban. Now, that to me right there is the issue. They're saying the legislature can't pass a bill, not saying there can't be a law. And if that's the case, we might as well pull the typhoon shutters down and lock it up.
We're closed.
We're done. Yeah, and I'm surprised that no one has really zeroed in on that argument, because to me that's what it's about.
She's saying that with current bills as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, every bill. You can't pass that bill. If you insist on passing that bill, I'm going to get an injunction. I mean, if you insist, on entertaining that bill, I'm going to get an injunction. Okay. While defendant AG filed a response to the oppositions filed by defendant's governor and GMH administrator, defendant AG's reply did not respond to the issues raised in plaintiff's opposition. Based on defendant AG's lack of response to plaintiff's arguments. Now, here's the key. Here's why Doug lost. Especially those that did not overlap with arguments raised by defendant's governor and GMH administrator. It's reasonable to presume that defendant AG takes no position on their arguments or is not contesting them, citing cases. And citing a case and then saying holding a party forfeited an argument raised in opponent's answering brief by failing to address it. By not addressing it, Doug forfeited it. Rule 60b-5 permits a party to obtain relief from a judgment or order if the judgment has been satisfied, released, or discharged. It is based on an earlier judgment that has been reversed or vacated, or applying it prospectively is no longer equitable. In reviewing Rule 60b-5 motion, the Supreme Court requires that there must be a significant change in facts or law that warrants revision of the decree, and the proposed modification must suitably be tailored to changed circumstances. The party seeking relief bears the burden of establishing that changed circumstances warrant relief. In this case, the burden falls on the defendant AG. While defendant AG argues that the legal basis for the permanent injunction no longer exists, defendant AG failed to address whether the change in law in Dobbs warrants vacature of the permanent injunction in its entirety. As plaintiffs have argued, irrespective of Dobbs or any other Supreme Court decision concerning abortion, Bell's Law was enacted, was a legal nullity the moment it was passed and can have no force today. Defendant AG has not refuted this argument, and having reviewed the relevant statutes and legal authority provided by plaintiffs in their opposition, to which the AG did not respond, the court finds the AG has not met his burden. Sad. It's sad because, it turns on a procedural technicality without really debunking what I think is at best a marginal argument that Bell's Law was void ab initio. And you recall that when the AG ruled that, I spent 5 minutes on the internet and came up with the Indiana rule. And and then having read Doug's brief and having looked at it myself, that just isn't the law. The law is not that, let's put it this way. When an unconstitutional statute is passed, people run to the court, and the newspaper will report it. They'll report it. Bell's Law was declared unconstitutional. Well, not really. What really happens is the court looks at it and it says, this particular law is not in accord with the Constitution, therefore it cannot be enforced. So in order to reach that point, you don't bring suit against the law. You don't ask for a declaratory judgment anywhere in the universe except on Guam. What you do is you bring suit against the public official whose job it is to enforce that particular law. Bring suit against him in his official capacity and ask for declaratory and injunctive relief, barring him from enforcing the law because it doesn't fit within the constitutional realm. That's how it works. But the law is still a law. It's still in the books. It's still there unless the legislature comes along and overrules it. So when the court that entered the injunction dissolves the injunction, it's still there. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. But this is an unfortunate flub. And as I mentioned the last time we talked about this, as a general principle, if you don't preserve it at trial, you can't raise it at appeal unless it's jurisdictional, which is not an easy word to handle. So we're getting pretty close, right, Jose?
Yes, sir, by about 3 minutes.
Yeah, so I got a couple of really interesting stories for tomorrow. I got one of the stories that I've got for tomorrow is I style it Monaculo versus Monakpapa. Monaculo meaning the higher up ones, and the Monakpapa meaning the lower down ones. And it talks about who got raises in the government of Guam. That's an interesting story. And then I'm ready to do my workup on the presidential search tomorrow also.
That story with the raises reminds me of the Hound of the Baskerville. Oh, wait, which story was it? It's not what they said. It's what they didn't say.
The Silver Blaze.
The Silver Blaze.
Yeah, the Silver Blaze, yeah. The Hound of the... You're hung
different story.
You're hung up on dogs, Jose.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's just about time, right?
Got another minute.
All right. So I'm going to put my papers away here. We talked about Doug in the district court. We talked a long time about Tucker Carlson. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot about Tucker in the near future, or in the not so near future also. And tomorrow I'm going to share my thought process on Enriquez versus Okada versus Quisenberry. Now there's a name for you, Quisenberry.
Sounds delicious.
It does, yeah. I'd like to have a Quisenberry bush in my yard.
Would you take a pie instead?
I suppose, a Quisenberry pie. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Have you ever had rhubarb pie, Jose?
Yes,
rhubarb
very good.
Pie is great.
Very tart.
We had a rhubarb plant out in our backyard when I was growing up, and you could just take a stalk of rhubarb and break it off and eat it. But boy, it really gets your attention. It is really sour.
Yeah. Good stuff, though.
Good stuff, yeah. Okay, can I say goodbye now, Jose?
Go for it, sir.
All right, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The Biden announcements. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The country's oldest ever president will announce his plans to seek a second term with a video dropping first thing this morning.
There are questions about whether this announcement will be, for lack of a better word, kind of a rush job. We have not seen any recent blitz across the states to tout his achievements like we were told would happen with the president. There are also reports that campaign staffing decisions haven't been made yet, and there's not going to be any major announcement, no event for that announcement anyway, at least that we know of. Instead, we are told to expect an announcement over social media, according to reports. That is the president's preferred method of communication lately. The White House is continuing to sidestep traditional media, keep them at a distance, and setting up a team of influencers to get their 2024 messaging out.
Fox's Jackie Heinrich at the White House. The president may be alienating an ally in his own party. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin says he would vote to repeal the so-called Inflation Reduction Act because, he says, the administration broke their word to the American public about the energy security portions of the bill. By midweek, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy will introduce a bill to raise the country's debt limit while cutting trillions in federal spending.
It's a massive win if he is able to pass a debt ceiling bill this week. If not, that could send an ominous sign to the markets about the ability of Congress to act.
I cannot imagine someone in our conference that would want to go along with Biden's reckless spending. This is responsible. This is something that we have sat down for months, that everybody's had input in.
And if McCarthy stumbles, it shows he can't pass his own bill. It's all about the math. McCarthy can only lose 5 of his own members and still pass the bill.
Fox's Chad Pergram at the Capitol. The country reached its debt limits in mid-January. North Dakota's Governor Doug Burgum has signed legislation banning nearly all abortions in the state. America is listening to Fox News.
New from the Fox News Podcast Network.
I'm Emily Campagno, and this is the Fox True Crime Podcast.
And I had nothing to do with her disappearance.
I sit down with the people who lived the nightmares.
I was in shock. I was just devastated.
The investigators who tirelessly worked on the case.
And I really hope that they can catch this guy.
Bringing you closer to the story than you ever thought possible.
Listen and follow now at foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
These are the stories that keep you up at night.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts commercial-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Dana Perino, Kennedy, Ben Domenech, The Duffys, and many more. Subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day, featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com.
The president will speak to a meeting of the building trades unions today.
Building the infrastructure generation is the theme of the North America Building Trades Union's legislative conference this week. The White House says President Biden will speak on how his Investing in America agenda is, quote, bringing manufacturing back, rebuilding the middle class, and creating good-paying union jobs. The visit comes with President Biden's presidential campaign announcement looming, and the president will likely discuss legislation he signed into law, such as the infrastructure law that's supposed to spend over $1 trillion on projects like road and bridge repairs across the country. The president has promised the projects will create thousands of good-paying union jobs. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
Later in the day, the president will accompany South Korea's President Yoon